few worse ways to anticipate your own death than to see someone else killed right in front of you, and consequently know that you're about to be served the same fate. Good thing it's them and not us, eh? I'm Amy from What Culture, and here are the 10 best, oh shit, he's dead and I'm next moments in horror movies. 10. Blood Rage. Julie. Blood Rage is one of those rage-inducing films that makes you feel so bad for one of the main men, in this case because he's put in the unusual position of being framed for murder by his own twin brother. The opening act sees two twin boys exploring a drive-in movie theatre whilst their mother makes out with her date. Out of absolutely nowhere, one of these kids brutally murders some fella with an axe whilst he's having sex with his girlfriend, then planting the axe in his docile, innocent twin brother's hands and getting him sent down for murder. Skip ahead 10 years and the murderous twin Terry is itching for another kill, which conveniently coincides with the same twin Todd escaping from his incarceration. The poor unfortunate to bite the bullet in this scenario is Bill. Having been on a date with his gal pal Julie, Bill goes back to her place and goes to answer the door while she slips into something a bit more comfortable. Waiting for him at the door is unfortunately not the pizza man, it's Terry, who just attacks him. When Julie opens the door herself, she finds Bill's decapitated head and realises a similar fate awaits her, a fate that ends with her later being found with a machete wedged in her dead body. Yeah, that is not how anyone saw Date Night ending. 9. The Devil's Rejects, Banjo and Sullivan. It may not have been the most gory death of Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects, but it's fair to say that the demise of Jimmy could well be one of the most jarring. Jimmy's death stands out because it's so sudden and cold-blooded, and it's the nature of that kill that lets the four members of Banjo and Sullivan know that they're going down next. Prior to his untimely demise, Jimmy was the group's roadie, and he ultimately made the poor decision to open the door to the motel room in which the group had already become very acquainted with Otis and baby Firefly. Upon opening the door, he's immediately shot square in the forehead, forewarning the group of their upcoming, equally and sometimes more disturbing deaths. 8. Freddie vs. Jason, Blake Muller. One surefire way to have a character shit their pants in terror is to have them catch their dead, decapitated dad's head as it slides off his shoulders. And that's exactly what happens to Blake Muller, one of the early victims of Freddie vs. Jason. With his best friend already dead and gone thanks to a quick chop by Jason, Blake is feeling a little bit on edge as he swigs some hard liquor and argues with his dad on the porch. He tells his pops that he needs some space and soon finds himself slipping off into the dream world, or rather the nightmare realm that is the hunting ground of Freddy Krueger. Thankfully for him, Krueger's too weak to kill him at this point, but Blake has a huge shocker awaiting him when he wakes up, a shocker that sees him turning to his dad only to see that his father's head is sliding off his body and a healthy dose of blood is spurting out. It's here that Blake knows something is very awry and he's quickly confronted and killed by a machete-wielding Jason Voorhees. 7. Hell is Where the Home Is, Sarah, Estelle and Joseph. Given how it's only relatively recently been added to Shudder, we won't have too many spoilers here. The film itself is a home invasion picture with a twist, and it's also a movie that has a pretty damn wonderful swirling shot that perfectly frames the shock and despair of three of our four main protagonists. The film centres on two couples renting a luxury house for the weekend. This all takes a turn for the sinister though when these characters find that their vacation is ruined by some masked invaders. Two cops are on the scene to assist these couples, but then seeing one of these lawmen murdered is what makes three of our main characters realise they really are about to be in a fight for survival. As Officer Ramirez opens the door of the property, whilst Sarah, Estelle and Joseph watch on, the unfortunate copper gets a machete wedged in his head by a creepy figure wearing a luchador mask. Brilliantly though, the camera angle switches to a POV shot from the viewpoint of Ramirez as he falls back, with the audience getting an upside down glance at Sarah, Estelle and Joseph as the panic sets in and they realise that they might well be next up for the chopping block. 6. Night of the Living Dead, Barbara. As George A. Romero's revolutionary Night of the Living Dead starts, we find siblings Johnny and Barbara at their father's grave, paying their respects. The only thing is, Johnny couldn't really care less about being there, and thinks it's funny to tease his mourning sister as a rather ropey-looking old man stumbles towards her. Of course, this old fella would actually turn out to be a ghoul who is intent on tearing the flesh from the bones of this brother and sister duo. Johnny is attacked and killed, with his head crashing down onto the gravestone after a tussle with this undead sort. That's when Barbara has her big moment of realization as her brother's lifeless body lays slumped on the grass and this ghoul lunges towards her next. Barbara goes on to make a dash for her car and end up at a farmhouse, perfectly setting the scene for what was to come for Romero's truly excellent Night of the Living Dead, a film so often cited as being the origin of what would become more commonly known as the zombie flick. 5. Halloween H20, Marion Chambers. What you're seeing here is Marion Chambers about to discover the ice skate impaled face of her young neighbour Jimmy. Jimmy and his pal Tony had been asked to scope out Marion's house for her when she was concerned she'd had an intruder. Well, there would indeed be an intruder, and said intruder was obviously Michael Myers, who had targeted the Chambers home in his quest to uncover some information on Laurie Strode. When Marion, who was the longtime assistant of the now deceased Sam Loomis, ventures back into her abode, that's when she's greeted by the visage of a brutalised Jimmy. There, her greatest fears have come true, as she realises that Haddonfield's most infamous son has hunted her down, and just moments later Marion would have her throat slit by Myers. Of course, the death of this character is now no longer canon following the franchise being recalibrated by 2018's Halloween. In this year's Halloween Kills, Marion Chambers will be alive and well, and frankly I think we're a bit excited to see her again. 4. Jaws 2, Tina Wilcox. Tina's big moment is when she's found by Martin Brody and co, letting out a haunted, terrified scream, warning all around of the shark she's just seen. I mean, I'd probably be screaming too if I'd already had to watch my boyfriend be devoured by a great white. In the moment, Tina knows she's gonna be next. She's just been cheering her boyfriend on to reach the side of their boat and get to supposed safety, only to see him attacked and rammed into the side of the vessel. It leaves her stuck in the middle of the ocean on a tiny boat, absolutely defenseless. It would take someone with nerves of absolute steel not to fear for their life at this point, when all evidence is suggesting that she's definitely next on the shark's menu. 3. Strip nude for your killer, Doris. When a film has a name like Strip Nude for Your Killer, you have to set your expectations to a certain level, and when said film opens immediately on a botched abortion, then you can adjust those expectations even more. Doris is one poor unfortunate who will eventually fall victim to the killer of this film, listening first to the screams of her lover in the other room. The two had heard a suspicious noise, reaching the only sensible conclusion that the man needed to go and check it out. Well, that's what chivalry gets you, I guess. Doris enters the other room following the cries of her boyfriend Stefano and finds his very dead, very naked body. I think at this point it's a safe assumption to make that you're gonna be next, and next she was. Poor old Doris is left just like her man, stabbed and stark as on the floor. 2. Scream, Casey Becker. Has Scream been talked about to death by now? Absolutely. Is the death of Scream's Steve Orth one of the all-time great oh shit he's dead and I'm next moments in horror? Again, absolutely. We can't be leaving it out, come on. It's tough to put together a list about these kind of moments and not include the opening act death of Casey Becker's beau, obviously then followed by Becker herself. Wes Craven's genre-changing Scream opens with a wrong number phone call turning into something mildly flirtatious, then turning into something incredibly sinister. After having her own life threatened and then ending the call, Casey's instantly called back and the unknown caller reveals that her boyfriend Steve is tied up on her patio, and not in the fun way. Once Casey incorrectly identifies Jason Voorhees as the killer of the original Friday the 13th, it's game over for Steve, and in a matter of seconds he's a dead, bloody mess. It's here that Barrymore's character truly realises the intention and the power of the person she's on the phone to, accompanied by the realisation that she's definitely next in line to be butchered by the villain we'd soon come to know as Ghostface. 1. The Slumber Party Massacre, Courtney Bates. The Slumber Party Massacre couldn't be more of its time. It began as a spoof, but evolved into so much more, becoming known by its cult following as an absolute classic. By the end of the picture, the deranged, drill-wielding killer at its core has finally been put down with a good old machete to the gut. Here, Courtney Bates screams in terror and fear at the sight of what's in front of her, not sure whether this seemingly unstoppable killer is actually done for, or whether he'll return for yet another kill. For Courtney, even though the driller killer does wind up dead in the Slumber Party Massacre, she understandably feared the worst and was left traumatized, as shown by how she's tormented by dreams of this killer during Slumber Party Massacre 2. Even once the first 1982 movie was done and dusted, the events of the film had enough long-lasting effect to make Courtney forever think she was the next, to the point where she somehow made her nightmares come true by bringing the driller killer back to life to stalk her in the second Slumber Party picture. And that brings us to the end of this list of the 10 best oh shit he's dead and I'm next moments in horror movies. There's plenty more out there, so please let us know what your favourites are in the comments below. And remember to check out whatculture.com for more lists and articles like this every single day. As always, I've been Amy from What Culture, and I'll catch you next time.